The Toronto Blue Jays are in the market for bats, and one of those bats that they're circling in on is Rhys Hoskins. Obviously, he missed all of 2023 with an ACL injury, but when he was last healthy in 2022, he hit 30 home runs and he was very productive at the plate. The Phillies have committed to Bryce Harper going forward, so he's on the market, and the Jays are all in on him. So we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. Fans, I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, Rhys Hoskins is a guy that is definitely going to get some consideration when it comes to one-year deals, one-year prove-it deals. He's 31 years old. He's got massive power, and he's looking to regain his value so he can get that one final big payday in free agency. But, Nick, this is a guy who has been one of the more productive hitters over the course of, let's say, the past five-ish seasons. He's got big-time power, and he strikes out a lot, and maybe he's not a 300 hitter, but you know exactly what you're getting out of Rhys Hoskins when he's healthy and when he's in that lineup. And when he was last healthy, he hit 31 home runs with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, I know there's a bit of a logjam at first base. You don't want a full-time DH if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, but it doesn't get much better in the power department. When we're talking about Rhys Hoskins, maybe Jorge Soler is a little bit of a better option, but this guy can really mash.
Yeah, and it seems like the Jays reports are starting to surface that they're all in. Before we get into that, quick reminder, about 73% of you guys who are watching this video are not subscribed. So go hit the button. We're very, very close to 10,000 subscribers. All right, let's get into the first topic. It's what you mentioned, the main topic today, which is the new Jays target. And new as in a report surfaced just yesterday that per Robert Murray, an MLB insider, Rhys Hoskins to the Jays has legs. The soon-to-be 31-year-old is almost fully healed from his big ACL injury, and he would bring tons of power to a team that desperately needs it. Now, Peter, we both know, you just discussed it, how good Rhys Hoskins would be. This seems like a Ross Atkins signing if I've ever seen one. Who knows what kind of contract he would command? Not too much, but he absolutely mashes. Another report here saying MLB insider connects Rhys Hoskins to and the Cubs to Rhys Hoskins. Now, Peter, you said it, 30 home runs, 79 RBIs in his last full season in 2022. I would love this guy. There's no doubt about it. He fits the bill. Some would argue he's even better than Jorge Soler. It's up to you to decide that, but I'm happy. I would love to see us pursue Rhys Hoskins, and we made a video on it a couple weeks ago. I don't know if there's a much better fit than Rhys Hoskins for this team right now, given what they need. Obviously, positional is not ideal, but we need power.
Yeah, they need power, and this would be like another edition of Brandon Belt, in a sense. A full-time DH, maybe plays first base every now and then when Vladdy needs a day off. But 30 home runs, I mean, that's pretty telling. This guy has much more power than Brandon Belt does, and he would definitely be a welcomed addition to this lineup. The Jays need power. It's pretty glaringly obvious that they need power right now. Their guys have just not been hitting enough home runs. They finished about middle of the pack last year, so they need to up that number and find a way to hit the ball out of the ballpark a little bit more. And what better than a guy who you could probably get for cheap, who hit 30 home runs in his last full season, in his last healthy season, and you might as well if you're the Jays. You got nothing to lose here. If it doesn't pan out, I'm sure you probably got him for cheap anyways, so you could cut ties if it's just not working out. But you might as well. Just see what you got in Rhys Hoskins here. He's going to want to regain his value. He's going to want to go to a team that is going to give him a lot of playing time, and I'm sure the Blue Jays would do that.
Yeah, and coming from Thomas Hall here, a Blue Jays writer, ignoring the first part about the trade with the Cardinals, but he really likes the idea of Rhys Hoskins on a one-year pillow contract, as Scott Boras referred to it, and it makes all the sense in the world. Peter, I think it would be a one-year deal in a case like this because Rhys Hoskins is obviously coming off a major injury. We've seen many players, especially Scott Boras clients, want to get paid big. And if Hoskins can come back, like you said, similar to a couple of players the Jays signed on one-year deals, Marcus, Semien, for example, perform very, very well and then get a more monster contract. He is 31 years old, so by the end of the contract, in theory, he would be 32, which still isn't super young, but it would be enough for him to get maybe a 2 to 3 year deal. It wouldn't be expensive. It would fit the Blue Jays what they need, and it would be much cheaper than Jorge Soler, at least term-wise, being only 1 year.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's why the Blue Jays were in on the Cody Bellinger sweepstakes as well. Free agents look at this. They look at other guys that have taken similar paths to them, and they say, well, why can't that be me? Marcus Semien came here on a one-year deal after a horrible year in Oakland, set a record for most home runs in a season by a second baseman. got his $150 million the next offseason. Robbie Ray came here, struggled with control, got paid, won the Cy Young, went to Seattle. So the story tells itself here if you're the Blue Jays. And other free agents are looking at that and they're saying, I can do the same thing. I can go here, I can play well for a good team, and I can regain my value and then get paid in free agency. And that's what ultimately all these players are looking to do. They want to win championships, they want to be part of good teams, but they also want to set up their families for long periods of time, and they want to make a lot of money and as much money as they can. And the Blue Jays have been giving these 1-year prove-it deal guys the best opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and their development system has been very solid, especially with guys like Marcus Semien, like other players like that. And Semien was obviously the big one. Players will look at that and see. But let's move on now to the second topic. Let us know in the comments your thoughts around Hoskins. And this is a quick Matt Chapman returning with the question mark there, but some more stuff is starting to float around. We never thought that it would really be a possibility, but according to Rhys Hoskins, it is. And according to John Heyman, Matt Chapman met with the incumbent Jays at the meetings. The surprise Diamondbacks and the Giants are among other teams eyeing third base, and the Jays offered well over $100 million in the spring, but the sides weren't close. And it comes out here that Chapman is probably shooting for $150 million plus. And I'm not sure if the Jays are going to want to offer him a $150 million plus contract. Obviously, this actually came out as well from John Heyman saying the Blue Jays offered him well over $100 million this spring, but never came close to an agreement on an extension. So the Jays want him back, even though he did not perform very well since really coming to the Blue Jays. But $150 million plus is what Matt Chapman is going for. I hope the Jays don't pay him that. As much as I like Matt Chapman, I don't want the Jays to pay $150 million for him, and I don't think that they will, although Rhys Hoskins did come out and say that they were going to be pursuing him very, very hard this free agency. But Peter, $150 million is a bit crazy to me. Obviously, we expected he would command this amount because of the weak free agency class, but I think $100 million, I would do it in a heartbeat, and the Jays did offer that in the spring, but $150, I'd rather look elsewhere, even like a Suarez replacement from the Mariners. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the Jays were committal to not necessarily upping the payroll this offseason. So if you're going to spend in areas where you're going to upgrade significantly. Now, Matt Chapman, good player, very exciting to watch on the defensive end. But if you pull up those numbers again for me, Nick, 17 home runs and 54 RBIs, that's just not going to cut it. That's not a $150 million player, and I'm sorry. And a lot of those numbers are even respectable because of that April that he had, So if it weren't for that one ridiculous month where he was the best hitter on planet Earth, then we'd be looking at a Matt Chapman season where he was one of the worst qualified hitters in all of baseball. So $150 million is ridiculous to me. I wouldn't even entertain that thought if I'm the Toronto Blue Jays. $100 million might even be pushing it for me. I think there are internal options that would be. It would be better to turn over the guard to them. I'd rather see a Relvis Martinez, see what he can do on a cheap contract, and then if it's not working out, that's when you pull the trigger on the trade. If you're the Toronto Blue Jays, maybe get a Jeimer Candelario or a Eugenio Suarez mid-season type thing. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of Matt Chapman being back on that big-time deal. 150 is just ridiculous to me. Way too rich for my blood. And 100 million, I could even say the same thing. I don't want to see him back for a 9-figure contract. Don't want to see that.
I tend to agree as well, and obviously he's probably going to get $150 million from a team like the Diamondbacks or the Giants that need, I guess, some more veteran presence, especially the Diamondbacks coming off a World Series appearance there. But I mean, for the Blue Jays, obviously Chapman's a Gold Glover. He still had a very, very respectable WAR, much carried by the first month of that season. But they need to make room in the infield for a lot of their prospects. And if they sign Matt Chapman to that, you're kind of handcuffing a Relvis Martinez to a degree, even Addison Barger, because you can't really bring him up and let him play where they could. Obviously, Barger doesn't play third base a ton, but Relvis is primary a third baseman. So then you're kind of handcuffing him. And you'd expect if you bring Chapman back, maybe you're looking to trade a Relvis Martinez and go more win now. I think it's time that we kind of hedge our bets a little bit here, bring up a Relvis or someone else on a one-year deal if you don't think a Relvis is going to be ready quite yet, and then bring in a Relvis. But I don't like the idea of a Matt Chapman. And it'd probably be, I'm assuming their offer was somewhere around 4 years, $100 million, so about 25 AAV, which isn't horrible. But right now he's probably looking for 150 would be my guess, maybe 150. And either way, I don't want to really extend him to that. But any quick final thoughts before we wrap up? And who knows? Maybe they'll re-sign him, maybe they aren't. But traction was picking up, and I'm hopefully that it died down a little bit. Not that we're hating on Matt Chapman. I just would rather see the young guys play.
Well, he's a Scott Boras client at the end of the day, so he's going to try to get paid. And, it doesn't matter how bad you were during the season, they're going to try to convince you that they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And Matt Chapman is just not that right now. So he had some great years. I could see him going to the Diamondbacks
Yeah.
with maybe Evan Longoria departing from that situation. And that would be a huge upgrade for them. To go from Longoria to Chapman. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see him on that young Diamondbacks team, and he would maybe even put them over the top. But for the Blue Jays' sake, I would rather see Aurelvis Martinez, and maybe he isn't ready. Maybe I would agree with you on that, Nick, and go for just a 1 year option. But I guarantee you that Matt Chapman is not looking for a 1 year deal. And that, in tune, just prices him out of Toronto, and I would stay away from him if I'm the Jays.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that we think Aurelvis Martinez is going to have a better season next year than Chapman. I think it's more so about, it's very possible that Matt Chapman has a much better season than whoever the Jays replacement is, but it's not something you can really risk and tie up for the next 4 to 5 years, especially as he continues to age and his defense continues to decline. Even though he won a Gold Glove, he hasn't been the same guy or the same power hitter. But that'll wrap up the video. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you want to see your video from yesterday, click on your screen right now, and we'll see you tomorrow.